Today, we're going to be talking about your visions for design. So, basically what you're trying to do, we know that all of you have got some great ideas and you would love to be able to bring those to fruition in some type of or blended learning and talk about what are the things that might be preventing you from getting there, including what we call the wall, which is caused by some of these tools making things so easy to do that sometimes it's hard to step beyond those boundaries. And then kind of talking about how we, by using Zebrazapps, have been able to break through some of those walls, making it just as fast and productive to do the higher level designs as it is to do some of the built-in ones. And then we've got a special offer for everyone that is able to join us today. Now, as I go through, I'll be stopping and asking questions. And Caitlin and Chris, if they see any that they think will be good to share with the group, they'll go ahead and ask me. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and move forward. All right, so the first thing we want to talk about is what we call the wall. So to us, it's sort of cool guided designs, and not cool, but tool, meaning that the tools that are out there are making what we call text and next so easy. What we mean by that is if you've got a PowerPoint presentation, those tools have made it very quick and efficient to basically import them, bring in your slides, your bullet points, your graphics, and then maybe put some narration around them and have a next button to move from slide to slide, and then put some questions at the end. And being that that has been made so easy, we're finding that budgets and schedules have actually been built around that exact style of doing e-learning. There's a lot of research that we have, and if you guys are interested, just let us know when you get the email from us, showing how ineffective that type of training would be. But we know that when we're talking with people that are looking into using some type of an authoring system, that's one of the first questions I ask is, can you do that? And so we just feel that that being so easy is one of the reasons people are doing more and more of that than we've ever seen before. And then memorization games. These tools have made it extremely easy to do things like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. They give you nice templates and you throw questions in. And though we love game theory and we love gaming whenever possible, the problem with those types of games is they're just mostly asking questions about some information you learned. And in memorization, the way that people learn is through repetition. And a lot of these memorization games, like Jeopardy, will ask you the question once. And if you get it right, you get points. If you get it wrong, you don't. But it's not a true game where you're practicing and playing and repeating things. So did we have a question? Nope. All right, just checking. So they've made that so easy that we're seeing lots of these games that we feel are not really teaching people how to do their jobs as much as just a more fun way of doing a quiz. And then the next, linear role play. If you were to go out and teach people live and you kind of put them in a situation where you pretend to be the customer or maybe you're trying to see how they do in a customer service or sales role, maybe even get multiple people working together. That works great, and so more and more people are trying to do that in e-learning or blended learning, and these tools have made it pretty easy to put together kind of a scenario and some multiple choice questions. But the way they're built, if you try to have multiple paths, be able to go down a different road, each time you answer a different question, you can maybe do that once or twice, but if you try to do it more than 2 or 3 times, just the interface or the programming that's involved, people aren't doing like a true create your own adventure type of an opportunity. I know when I was a kid, I had one of those create your own adventure books, and if I got to page 3, it would say if you want to do this, go to page 8, and this one might be go to page 11, and there might be 20 different ways of getting through that book. And we see a lot of people starting down the road, but again, we see after the first or second question, pretty much it gets back to, no, that's not it, try again. And we think that's because the tools are limiting you, but people are trying it, but just not taking it as far as we think they should. And then the last thing would be the guided software simulations. A lot of these tools make it really easy for you to click a button and record going through software, and it's recording where you click and what you type, and then you publish it, and it's sort of a movie that's kind of stopping and starting as the student's going through it, which is better than just sort of passively watching it. But they don't allow you to have multiple paths, 2, 3, 4 ways to move on from a screen. they're not able to perhaps have a customer coming in and you having one of those role plays at the same time. They don't allow what we call a sandbox, which is you just let people do whatever they want and see if they get to the right answer. So they make that pretty much impossible. So we're seeing more and more people doing these guided simulations, but then people are better than just watching a video, but we know you're not going as far as you'd like to, again, because the tools are making it so easy to do the guided that they're sort of limiting you on doing anything beyond. All right, so at that point, I want to stop and see if anyone's got any questions. All right, great. I'll go ahead and move on. Now, when we're talking about the wall, what we all are trying to do, and here we're instructional designers and developers as well, is we know we're shooting for results. What we're not trying to do is have a checklist of a student needs to know these 20 things, and so if I have 20 pages and they read them and they pass a quiz, I know they're going to do their job. We're really trying to find a way that when they go out into the real world, that they sell more, or the customers are happier. Maybe there's less mistakes being made. Maybe they're happier on the job. And so what we're trying to do is figure out how to build learning solutions that will drive those results. And we usually have some kind of an idea. You might have thought of some cool, like a create your own adventure game, or some way of doing a role play or simulating the job and letting people actually try and practice, succeed and fail. And then you try to use these rapid e-learning tools to build that. And when you do, a number of things can happen. So one of the things that can happen is they give you some limited options. So they might have 4 or 5 templates that are built in, and what you end up doing is designing to those templates. And if you're wanting to do something outside of there, pretty much you say, well, I'd like to, but I can't because I'm just not given that option. Another thing might be not enough time. We know that there are tools like Lectora and Storyline that give you the ability to do some code and some very sophisticated logic and branching, but unless you're an expert at that or at coding, and even if you are, it can take a lot of time not just to build it once, but if you try to copy and paste it and reuse it, it just takes so much time that it's not going to fit in the schedule, so you end up kind of staying away from it. It might be you have too few resources. You might only have one person that's really good at figuring out how to code and do the complex branching in those tools, or maybe you'd have to hire that out. So you just don't have the right staffing to make that possible, and most of you are just trying to get the content and the instructional integrity in, and depending on others who maybe don't exist to do sort of the complex shells. And it might just be too hard. Developers might say, I can do this in these tools, but it just takes so much effort that it's just not worth the results. And then again, it can be too expensive. You might have to have your staff working for many hours, or you might have to hire an external vendor to do it. And there are some things that we believe just can't be done in those rapid tools that we believe Zebrazapps is the perfect environment to do. And so that's sort of the last brick in the wall is if there's any design that you can conceive, we would like to believe that Zebrazapps could build it. So you would hopefully never have anyone say that can't be done. Okay, so what I want to do is show you some examples of this, and I want to show you why we believe that the inherent features and functions within Zebrazapps will make some of this stuff possible. So the first thing we would talk about is active learning as compared to what we call the text and next. And in an active learning environment, that we want to be focusing on experiences. So instead of a lot of reading, we want to immediately put you into a problem you need to solve with some higher levels of interactivity, and then the feedback would change based on the choices you're making. So the feedback becomes sort of your best mechanism for learning, and then making sure that the interface and the way things are moving on the screen is engaging, so a student doesn't feel like they're just reading a book. All right, so I'm going to jump over to an example. And so what you should be seeing on your screen is an actual course that was developed in Zebrazapps. And you're looking at what we call the event flow. For those of you that are used to PowerPoint, you're used to slides, maybe on the left. And so for us, instead of slides, we call them events. And in this course, we have an event where we introduce a terrorist organization. So this course was built for the state of California, for their police officers training, to teach them about all the different terrorist organizations they might run into to help them investigate and prevent attacks. And so we have an event where we have an introduction to a group, and then we have an event here, this number 2, where they're trying to figure out what they would target, what someone in this organization would be going after. And we have an event for deciding what weapon you would use, and then how you actually build the weapon, and then showing you how that attack worked out, and then a bit of a summary. So those are our events, which are like slides. And if I go to the left, these are our masters. So this is a background that's carried through. And then this is sort of reference guide that I'll show you that we kind of overlay on top of everything. So I'm not really going to be teaching Zebrazapps while we're here together. So I just want to give you a higher level to show you this is what Zebrazapps looks like when you go in and you author. Now, one of the biggest things that we think makes the kind of higher level learning possible is productivity. And one of the things we think makes Zebrazapps more productive than anyone else is that if I go into an event, so this would be event 1, and if I wanted to, of course, I can edit from here, but if I click this button, which is run from here, I am immediately running as a student. So I don't have to wait for it to compile, and I can choose any event to run from, so I don't have to always start at the beginning. All right, so here we're going to put you in the mindset of this terrorist. So again, we're not promoting terrorism. This is just a course that we developed. And then as a student, you would click continue. And now what you're going to do is you need to select a target. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click close. And so instead of giving a ton of information with a lot of next buttons, and one of the reasons we don't do that is because we aren't making it that easy to just import a PowerPoint. We're trying to make easy to build this kind of activity. So as you're trying to figure out what they would attack, you might decide a research facility. So I'll click that, and then feedback will come up and say, well, actually, this would be great for our friends, but not for us. And then you could continue to click maybe a construction site. And again, interesting idea, but no. And as you're clicking and you're clicking, you're going to find out, you know, maybe I should do some research. And especially with the younger generation, we found they're not so excited about reading page after page of a book, but to look things up, basically Googling. So we were able to create a button, and we just bring up the manual. And then once this comes up, we can just go straight to the page and read it. And then after we have found our answer, we can close it up and go back. Now, the other tools allow you to link, but we don't think it's as fast or as easy to build these types of interactions that we're doing. So you tend to just put all that content on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Riverview Townhomes, and an excellent choice. I'll move on. But now I'm going to give you a follow-up question. So you have to justify your answer. And then as you're going through about people work here, well, that's not our goal to kill people. The company claims it's environmentally responsible, or maybe we just want to send us a message and that's what they're all about. Now, if I click a little button up here, there's a little run lock button. What this is going to do is it's going to allow me that while I'm running, I would like to do an edit. So while I'm running, I can come up to here and I can double click on the screen, and this will make the land developers think twice. So just the fact that I can be changing while I'm running and then go ahead and lock it again is a tool that allows us to do this type of interactivity. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. And now I'm back running again. And then the next example we're going to do is we're going to have you pick a weapon. So now what I'm showing you is, like we used to do in Flash, this is off the screen, all these things. But as I go ahead and click close, we have the ability to have these engaging user interfaces, having things slide in from the side, having things grow and bounce like you used to be able to do in Flash learning. And that's real easy to build as well. So here we're able to, go through and pick different devices, and you can see the transition effects we have, and try to pick one, and we're going to say, nope, that doesn't work, so I go back to the weapon. And then I might try a incendiary device. And then to speed things along, I know it's a fuel-based. I'm going to go ahead and click continue, and they're saying this works well. And then the last thing I'm going to do is locate how to build a weapon. So I can in any order pick these, so maybe the timer, and I'd get that at Radio Shack. That's good. And then maybe my diesel fuel, and I can get that at the gas station. Good. And the electrical wires, I'll get those at Radio Shack. And my last component is going to be my 5-gallon container. Now what you're noticing is it's going to know once I've picked this at a construction site. Nope, not available there. And so I'm going to go ahead and maybe get it at Home Depot. And now it knows that I've completed it. So it's got a lot of logic that's going on without any programming that can tell how I'm doing and when I've completed and customize it. And each of these was an actual real event that happened. All right, the last thing I'm going to do here, so I'm going to go back to my event flow. And if I wanted to build a whole nother one of these for a different terrorist organization, for example, this activity on deciding how I would build a device, I'm simply going to make a copy of it by clicking here on this add event. And now what you're going to see is I have 2 of them. And now I can simply go into here and then start changing the text, changing the graphics, moving things around. And so each of these I can make into an event. So this one, I can make a copy of this one. So I've got 2 of them, and then I can just rearrange them on the screen. And so, you know, I can put this one maybe at the end, just drag it there. So after I build something in Zebrazapps, I've now got an instant built-in template.
You know, I kind of wanted to say something here because this is where I really start using Zebrazapps, because I sometimes don't always have the time to develop, but I will give it to the developers, and then they'll create this shell for me. And once I get that, I can, you know, put in as much information as I want, and it's each different every time. So for this particular one, you know, maybe they're doing the Earth Liberation Front first, and then I can just make a whole copy of it and just put in a whole new terrorist organization, and it makes things so quick for me.
Right, and actually, being that we're able to build this way, instead of putting in all the content and having the 10 different manuals, we're able to build 10 simulations of this by just copying and pasting, and the subject matter experts were actually able to change the content. All right,
Exactly.
so that's sort of our first thing about the wall. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this page, which is we feel that it makes it so much easier to build this type of learning, especially with the ability to create templates and copy and edit on the fly and on the screen without having to know the tool at all. In fact, you never saw any part of what's behind the scenes, and Zebrazapps makes that possible. All right, if I don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and move on. So the next thing would be what we call a serious learning game. So this would be, as opposed to a Jeopardy or a Wheel of Fortune game, we want those activities to be realistic. That if the game is supposed to teach you how to, and the one we're going to do is cook, then you should be cooking. You shouldn't have a Jeopardy game about what food item would you put in this kind of a sandwich. We'd actually like you to build a sandwich. And then authentic consequences. Instead of the consequences being you got $300, well, what would happen if you served something to the customer and they didn't like it? And delayed feedback. Maybe in the real world, no one's telling you yes or no as you're doing your job. You might not know until the end of the day or the end of the week or a month later when you get fired. And complex rule and scoring, these games, you know, the rules of doing your job, the rules of, you know, whatever tasks that you do can be very complex, and we want people to have to apply those rules so they can understand the subtleties of doing the job. So we want those games to be more complex than something as simple as a Jeopardy or Wheel of Fortune. All right, so I'm going to go here to Zebra, and I'm going to pull up an example for cooking times. And so now I'm launching the editor from scratch, and this has popped up, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit so you can see I'm on a monster monitor here. And again, as I showed before, I'm going to click this button and just run it from here. And what this game is doing is it's teaching cooks about cooking times, which not all of these items take the same amount of time to cook. And if I click on the reference button, then we have how long they all take to cook. The original lesson did nothing but just go over this over and over again. And they had a game where they were quizzing how long does this take? How long does that take? And they were finding out when they went on the job, they were still making a lot of mistakes burning food, and it still took them a couple weeks of practice. So we wanted to take practice before they got out in front of customers. So what we can do is we can take these eggs and we can try to put them somewhere. And being it says scrambled eggs, you can't just put eggs on the grill. That's sunny side up. But we can put them over here and they go in a pan. And then the hash browns we'll put on the flat grill, and the bacon I'll go ahead and put on the meat grill. Now up here you're seeing a clock. It's part of the game. You have 3 minutes to serve this, and uh-oh, my eggs are ready. I better pull those off. And if you don't get it served within 3 minutes, then the customer's upset. They'll send back the food. All right, now another thing is my bacon's not ready yet. Oh, I won't pull that off. Uh-oh. Okay, my hash browns got burned. I wasn't paying attention. Oh, my bacon's ready. And then I'm going to go ahead and serve it. And then here's my feedback. The eggs were cooked perfectly, but they got cold. And the hash browns were overcooked, but they're still warm, and the bacon's perfect. So I'm going to have to restart and do this all over again and again and again until I get this right. After I get this one right, I get a ticket with 5 items. And then I get 2 tickets, and then 3 tickets. Eventually, I have 5 tickets constantly running with 20, 30 food items on the screen. And this is real game. This is real practice. After someone has been able to succeed and do all 5 items and have customers happy, they are completely confident that they'll know what they're doing when they get out in front of a real grill in a real restaurant. So here, I'm going to get smart. I'm going to put the bacon on first, and I'm going to wait a little while, because that's what should happen, is you should let the meat cook a little bit, and then I'll go ahead and put my eggs on, and I'll put my hash browns down. And then this time, hopefully they'll all finish at the same time. Now, luckily we sped things up, so you don't have to wait around for 3-5 minutes. So that's ready, this is ready, and I serve it. And now it's all working. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get out of running it. I'm going to get to the edit mode. And so I can show you just a little bit of what's behind the scenes. I'm going to go to one where we just built the eggs. And I'm going to move this over just a little bit so you can see it. All right, so what I've got going here is I've got this set of eggs, and these are what we call raw. So for Zebrazapps, every object on the screen has got what we call a message center, and it's everything there is to know about this object. So these raw eggs, and I call them raw because I'm going to use them for hash browns and bacon and toast. This object, when it is dropped on, and then I've got this object right here, which is the drop cook, I'm going to go ahead and start a cook clock. And then once I put it on the grill and I'm showing you the pan, I have a burn clock and a cold clock. The burn clock starts when the cook clock is done, and the cold clock starts when I put it on the plate. But the power is right here in what we call the answer judging table. What I'm doing in this answer judging table is I am checking if the cold clock is at 0, it's run out. If the burn clock is run out, if the cook clock is run out, and if the cold has even started, because if I never even started the cold clock, that means you forgot to put it on the plate. And what I have here is if, for example, the cold clock didn't run out, the burn clock did not run out, but I finished cooking it, well then it's perfect and it's good. And these are all of the different possibilities. And this is what's going into that message that's over here.
And see, I love the answer judging table because to me, it's obviously a lot easier than coding it out, but you're seeing the conditional formatting here visually.
Right.
It's X's and checks.
Right.
And that makes sense to me.
Right, and it's easy to just swap these by just clicking and swapping between checks and X's. And then I'm going to do the productivity part of it, which I now want this to work for hash browns. So once I've created this, I'm going to click my raw eggs, and then I'm going to click my plate, and I'm going to click the cooked eggs, the hash browns, the area where they all cooked, and I'm going to get my 3 clocks, and I'm going to get that nice answer judging table. So I'm going to get my 3 clocks, And I'm going to do what's called make a gadget. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to make a gadget. And this has created a reusable learning object, something that I could share with people, I can use over and over again. And we need to do this because we could have up to 30 of these items on the screen at the same time. So I'm simply going to copy this gadget, and then I'm going to paste it. And I'm just going to move this over a bit so you can see. So now I've got my eggs and I've got my hash browns. So I'm going to go inside of this, and then all I need to do is go to my library, and I have all the graphics that were provided to me, and I'm going to take the raw hash browns and I'm going to drag it there on the eggs, and I'm going to replace it. And then I'm going to take this shape, which is where they're going to drop it to, and I'm just going to position and size it so that it's over here on the grill where I want the hash browns to cook. And then I'm going to swap out my hash browns on the grill. And I'm going to move the hash browns over here. And the last thing I'm going to do is take the cooked hash browns, replace these, and then move my plate and put the hash browns where the hash browns go. And then I'm going to replace everything in this gadget, and then I'll run it. And now what I've got is both my eggs and my hash browns, and I've got these two working in the game. And then if I want a third item, I just do the same thing, fourth, fifth, 30 times. I'm able to create a very sophisticated game with interrelated logic. And that first one, I do a webinar, and when we send you the email, we'll send you a link to the webinar, and you can see it took about 20 minutes to build the first gadget, and then I could just copy and paste. And this is something in that category of you just can't do it in the rapid e-learning tools.
Right, and it makes production fly. I mean,
Right.
I can just replace those objects. That's easy for me.
Now, these graphics, we had an artist, and they went up and got some art from like iStock, and then they cleaned them up a little bit. We work with the e-learning brothers, and they have tons of libraries of avatars and art. So you can bring in any clip art, any art that you're able to attain from a stock photograph. And there's a lot of drawing tools in Zebrazapps. You can't draw these eggs, but the plate and the background, pretty much everything else except sort of the 3D grill, we're able to do in Zebrazapps.
Yeah, and you can bring in, any of your own pictures too, whether it's just from a disk or right off your desktop, whatever it might be.
All right, now I had someone that was asking quickly about like variables and if you want to do coding, and we didn't need to do any coding in here, but if you wanted to, yes, we have an object called a calculation object. Just pop it on the screen, and inside of here, and I'm not going to do it, but we have lots of variables and functions, and you can do all kinds of math, and yes, if you want to get into coding, you can, but we would love for you to be able to do everything without coding, so it's sort of your choice. All right, now on, good question on mobile devices. We're going to, what's that?
We're going to cover the mobile devices at the end so we can get through.
But
if
yes.
you'd like, you can answer that.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get out of here, and let me leave this page. So just as kind of a quickie, like here would be, like the cooking times. And if you wanted to create this for a mobile device, I'm not going to go through all the clicks, but the first click would be there, and then I could create a package, which would create the APK, and then we have the facilities in Zebra where you can put in your developer license, your signature, so you can upload this directly to Google Play or to iTunes. And this is a real app. Unlike some of the other tools that it's really just an HTML5 page, or you have to download their app, we're actually letting you create an app with an icon that can be put on a mobile device, and you can run it whether you have internet connectivity or not. So we call that a real app. So the answer to your question would be, oh yeah. All right, so let me get back to the presentation.
And we do actually, I do want to interrupt and just ask one more question of you, Steve, about the games before we get into the role play here. Somebody asked a question on whether you could have video of your egg cooking.
Oh, yes, yes. Actually, Zebrazapps makes it really easy to bring in video. And that video can either be uploaded or you could point to YouTube or some other media server. And so, yep, we do allow for either of those. And you can control the video. Actually, the last one that I'm going to show you, I've got a little video in, but you can play, pause, you can have a little controller jump to certain frames or play a certain bit of frame. We think we have more video controls than anybody. And we treat a video like a graphic, so you can actually put questions on top of it and hotspots and text and overlay. So I'll show that towards the end. All right, any others?
That's it for now, thanks.
Okay, all right, dynamic role play. Again, everyone's doing role plays, and the tools, Captivate and Storyline in particular, they have some nice templates that are people doing role plays, and we've seen like 3 in. What I mean by 3 questions where if you pick option 1, 2, or 3 on the first page, then it gives you 3 different screens, but usually after 2 clicks and you're at 9 possible screens, they stop. And Captivate, because if you created that table, that branching org chart, it would be the size of a wall. And in Storyline, they have state table programming, and that programming can get very complicated. So we wanted to create a system where you could do as dynamic of a branching as you wanted, and you could have like a situation dashboard. And you could have a score, maybe some bars or some meters or some gauges to tell you how you're doing. And it would be very easy to do that, and you could have 5, 6, 7 different things you're keeping track of. We'd be able to show you how you're doing. And delayed feedback, that we can wait till you're at the very end and then say, well, you know what? We tracked everything you did, and based on your answers, here's how you did on one type of objective. Like, did you ask open-ended questions? Were you collaborative? Were you nice? Were you understanding? And then be able at the end to tell you how you did, and practice to mastery, make you go back and do it over and over again until you get it right, as opposed to most of the role plays we see that as you guess your way through it, no, that's not it, try something else. You get to the end and they say, good job, but didn't do it the right way. So let me go back over and launch that one. So this will be a role play we've got. Now, just like the games, which we have a webinar, we did a webinar on this one, and again, it took about 20 minutes for me to build what I'm going to show you. We also have a class that we teach where we give you the materials so you can build this yourself. It takes about 1.5 hours to 2 hours for someone to build this themselves without any help. So let me just, as it's coming up, any additional questions?
You know, just a couple questions about special fonts and whether or not we can put special fonts in our projects.
Right. We internally do, because we've licensed them. We've purchased them. Because when you're using a system like Zebrazapps, and people can run it anywhere, and in a browser and a mobile app, it isn't like a PowerPoint where Microsoft already licensed those fonts. So for our customers who have licensed custom fonts, yes, we are able to load those in, and we are working on a feature that will come out soon where if you have a licensed font, you can upload your own. So right now we don't have that turned on, but it will soon, but we're doing it internally.
Yep.
All right, so here's role play, and again, I'm just going to go ahead and run this. All right, so what's happening here is I've got Lucy, and she's an adolescent patient with weight management issues, and I can go and look at the profile of Lucy, and she's 17 years old. The last time we visited, we discussed weight management, and your goal is to get Lucy motivated to follow a plan. So that's the problem that this hospital was having, is the patients would leave and then not do anything they told them to do and keep coming back and coming back. So what we want to do is give the ability to see what this patient is thinking and saying. So we have the ability to roll over and maybe some of her thoughts would be helpful. And then a coach that starts off by saying, well, you need to pick something. And we start off with a motivation meter on where Lucy's starting. And then as a negotiation roadmap, seeing how you're doing on getting her to actually follow your prescription. So I'm going to pick one of these, and I can just pick any of them. So maybe I pick, let's start talking about your weight management problem. Where would you like to start? That seems like a good question because we're asking where she wants to start. And I click it, and what I don't get is a, that's right, that's wrong. What I get is the coach saying, well, next time you might want to have more active dialogue and maybe ask her permission to talk about a certain subject, build rapport. And if I look at what she's thinking, I may be overweight, but I don't have a problem. That's one of the things that you're trying to learn is you shouldn't be calling it a problem. Now, Lucy has changed her facial expression, and yes, this could be done with a video, and her motivation has gone down. Now, you have to recover. So it's like a create your own adventure book. You're now on page 8. What are you going to do? So maybe I'll say, well, why don't we talk about some of the resources we have here? And actually, that didn't help. Maybe I guess I don't want to go to some kind of a class. The coach is telling you, well, you offered some resources, but you missed an opportunity to see what she's interested in. And what we find students do is they take notes, actually on paper, because whenever they finish this up, we know of all of the things. Were you authoritarian? Were you collaborative? Did you ask open-ended questions? This was a complete, you blew it. And so we're going to tell you that, and you have to restart and do it all over again. And, you know, if you pick the right answers, then your clinical style was collaborative. You focus on open-ended questions. She's happy. The bar's gone all the way up. And we will let you go on to the next scenario, which will get you to negotiate the agenda. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go back into edit mode. And again, the real productivity and power here is this only took about 20 minutes for me to build. It would take an hour or two for someone just starting out in Zebrazapps to build. But the building of it isn't what's really cool. Really cool is how you create the scenario. And so I created a little box down here, a little checkbox. And what this is doing is I'm giving a little wizard to help the author. So right now, they're on page 1. And if they wanted Lucy to look differently, they could simply say, I want her to maybe come in and she's sad when she starts. So I'm just going to pop that in. And then the next thing I'm going to do is say her motivation is not quite so high. And then what I'm going to do is I could actually change what is being said. Now, this script was created by the subject matter expert, and they did it in Excel. And so actually, this is the Excel spreadsheet that they gave us. So we built Zebrazapps so that it would directly mimic this spreadsheet. So they could actually come in here and they can double click in here and they can select and copy. And then we go back over to Zebrazapps, and in here, I could just paste that in.
And that's what a lot of our writers do in the studio. They know, you know, right away they have a template that the developers already created them. If they have any questions, they can go back to the developer and ask real quick, or they can say, you know what, I don't like the way it's going, can you rework it? And it's really easy for them to just input it in rather than having to take weeks going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until you find the right, you know, final product for you guys, right, for the two of them.
And again, we've actually got subject matter experts in here, and they can change text and edit. And if they want this to go to page 5, all they have to do is just type the 5 in there. And when they click here on this button, I'm on page 5. And I can go to all the different pages by just dragging this. And you would say, well, is that a built-in template? I'm like, no, this is a template that took only a couple hours to build because this was the design and this was the data layout that that customer wanted. But we're able to build it in a way where you can now be productive. So again, when it comes to that wall, you would say, well, why don't I do something that's more dynamically branching? Well, because with us, being that we could go down any path, we actually created a structure. Let me actually move the screen up so you can see it. We created a structure in Zebrazapps, what's called a state table, that was that spreadsheet. And so we can say, based on clicking the first, second, or third button, what column or what row or what page you would go to. And in the full product, this has 81 columns. So there's 81 different possible places you could go with 81 different sets of questions. all built in. And so our branching is limitless. And just as I showed you before, whenever I want to then make another version, I'll go to the event flow and let me zoom out a bit. Let's say that I just want to make a copy of this. So I'm just going to go right here and copy that one. And now I've got two of them. And then what I want to do is say, now this is a different patient. So I'm going to start off and get, maybe I project, and I'm going to import assets just to show you how I'm able to do that. So let me go inside of, let me go inside of here, demos. And then I might decide I want all of Mrs. Morgan. So I'm going to pick all of Mrs. Morgan's graphics. And again, we got these from someone like the eLearning Brothers. They have thousands of these people. We just bring them in, and you're going to see Miss Morgan's just going to populate into our library. And now what we can do is I can take Miss Morgan and swap out Lucy with Miss Morgan. And now here I go building a whole nother scenario with someone completely different. All right, let me go ahead and get out of here. So any questions before I?
The main thing is that somebody had a question about, once your developer creates this template for you, how easy is it to change it around? And then it's as simple as changing anything you want.
yeah. If I wanted to change, for example, if I wanted, this to be somewhere else, I could move it. I could import a different graphic. If I wanted to add another one of these questions, I could move these. I could change the way the buttons look. I can change the font of any of these. So, if I go inside of here, let me go ahead and show on where you can see the selected message center. So I'd have to zoom out a bit. Oh, sorry, I'm just clicking away here. So if I was to zoom out, then each of these has got a message center. So this is the coach text. So this is actually a good point. Inside of here, you would be able to change, like in the font, you could change the font name. Let me zoom in again. The font size, the style. We have all the appearance.
Make font a different color.
You could have glows and shadows, and if I go in here to the actual fonts themselves, then this is where I've got a bunch of fonts because we've licensed these and we can use them. So that was a good thing of showing for other people. Yep, we can bring in whatever fonts we have licensed to. So yes, again, being it took me 20 minutes, it takes a couple hours to build it, to make changes. And the beautiful thing is, being that we have that spreadsheet driving it, I just change it once, and then the entire scenario is changed. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave this page, and we'll get out of here. All right, let me get back to the presentation. So there. All right, we'll go ahead and move on, and now, software simulation. A lot of these tools, they want you to do the screen recording, which is sort of the movie, which makes it really easy to record. What we've run into is we've got clients that maybe have 200 or 300 software recordings, and one screen might be in 50 of them. And if that screen changes, they have to re-record all 50 of those. So we wanted a system where you could do either screen captures or a video. So we can go either way. Multipath branching, most of them record that when you click or you type, it goes forward to the next. Well, what if there were 3 or 4 ways? And you want to say, well, either I want to go to the file menu and pick this, or I want to hit this key, or I want to click this button. And maybe some are better paths because they take 3 steps. Other ways might take 8 steps. We want to be able to do that. Multiple levels of help, so it isn't just wait till you get it wrong and then we say try again, or maybe there's a demo button. Maybe we have some deeper levels of getting understanding. And then again, practice to mastery. If you get to the end and you needed help, you made a mistake, we want to be able to say you need to go back and do it again. Let me go back over to Zebra. Let me open up my task model. And this was actually a project that we're working on with barcode projectors. And they're teaching their people how to use Salesforce. So we're finding a lot of this. And pretty much the same as everything else, we built a template in about an hour that allowed them to have either the movies or their software screens. And then the way this works is if you want this to be a different screen, they have their screens loaded into their library. And if I want it to be a different screen, I would just drop it on here, let it go, and it's the screen you want. So if I put it back to the screen it's supposed to be, I'll just bring it here and drop it. And I'll replace this object. This red box is the correct answer. So wherever you put it and however you size it, that becomes where the student is supposed to click. Or if they're supposed to type in, then we have a little thing we built over here that says if that's a text entry, you click this and down here you put in the right answer. And then that means they have to actually click there and then type. We wanted to create a hint. So if the student was to roll over the hint, then we would be able to bring up and show them these are the 3 things you're supposed to do for this step. So we're on step 1, so we're also showing you're on step 1 of 4. This is the step you're supposed to be doing, and there are 3 what we call gestures. And so we want to be able to do the hint. And when they do the hint, they roll over it, we're also showing the highlight. And the last part of this is if you click show me, we're actually going to have the mouse move and click or have the words type in for you. And then the user can put this red circle wherever they want the mouse, because sometimes you want the mouse to click down here, so they could actually design that. And then over here, I've already pulled one, but there's another one. I could pull this on the screen, and then whatever number I put in there, just like that Create Your Own Adventure book, do I want to go to this next screen, or do I want to go to the 3rd screen, or the 5th screen, or the 9th screen? And we can make as many copies of these as we want. And then this could have a million ways of getting through the software. All right, so if I go ahead and I run this, and I'm going to run it as a student would see it, then here I am, I'm not sure what to do. I roll over the hint, and you can see that hint come up and the red box show up, but when I move off the hint, it goes away. And then if I'm not sure what to do, I can click show me. The mouse is going to go there, and there's a little click sound. And then if I do it right, I click there. And then if I want, I can basically do the scenario. And the scenario would actually give you sort of the higher level of how this would all work. And so you just kind of go through and you can go step by step. So if you want to let the students skip ahead to step 2, 3, or 4, and we're showing that right now we're on step 1, this is how all of this works together. And then someone was asking about video. So we do have the ability that instead of having the software screens, we actually can bring in a video. And so this video object right here is the video that we brought in. And what we're doing is we can actually say, start on second 1, and then we can, if you do a show me, play 10 seconds of it, or skip ahead. And inside of here, we can either have this loaded into Zebrazapps, or we could actually have it pointing to YouTube or any URL where this video is posted. And that's nice, because then those videos can either be like a podcast for people to watch, and those exact same videos can be brought in here. And if they ever change, you just change them out on your server, like on YouTube, and they're immediately updated in your application. All right, so that's just kind of we do software simulation too, but we think that we give you more options and more choices in the way that you're doing software training. All right, so what we want to do is make an offer. Some of these we've offered before, but one thing we never have, and that is if you want to try Zebrazapps out, we would give you a 30-day free trial. But not just a free trial, but we have a training class that we run a couple times a month, and we would give you a free admission, free registration to that, so you can actually be part of that training. We also have an online version if you want to do it at your own pace. But after you've completed the training, I am willing to give you a half a day to a day of my time to build a proof of concept. So if you've got this great idea that you haven't been able to do in the tools you're currently using, and you want to see just how easy it is, then we would let you, we'd schedule a little brainstorming session. We would then build it for you. and then show you how it was built in Zebra and train you on how we built that. So then you can see, yes, you could do it yourself in Zebra, as well as we feel there's no limitation to the types of designs you'd be able to build. So we're going to be sending you an email, and in it we'll have a link to the recording of this webinar and how you would get a free trial and sign up for the training, as well as some links to some previous webinars in case you want to see those as well. So what I wanted to do was leave the rest of this time up for any questions and answers, and I mean any relevant Zebrazapps related questions and answers. I'm happy to answer. You can ask other things, but I might choose to defer on that topic. Okay, I've got one about having a different authoring tool. And so what I'm going to do is we've actually integrated Zebrazapps with other tools. So I'm actually going to go to my hard drive, and then I'm pretty sure I have testing. Let's see. Yep, I've got Lectora. So Lectora, Captivate, Storyline. When you create Zebrazapps, you can distribute it as a self-contained like a package that can be loaded on a desktop. You can do a mobile application. You can load it on LMS or an iframe, which means you can embed it in any tool that would allow you to embed a URL or HTML. So in here, I'm actually going to go into the HTML, and if I launch this, so here's the Lectora course, and this was pretty standard. We're talking about this multimeter, and then I can have rollovers. Next. And then I can do some other objects that I can roll over. Next. And then what they wanted to do was to create a simulation. And so we're now pulling up. Now, this is pulling in the Zebrazapps simulation because we wanted the student to be able to do anything the device could do. So you can set the switch anywhere you want. You can move this. You can set the leads to be anywhere you want. You can flip a switch, and then you can judge your settings. And then I got the red and the black probe right, but these two are completely wrong. And I can maybe get a hint and say, oh, okay, well, this needs to be there. Maybe I flip the switch again, judge my settings, and still not quite there. So there's my hint. All right, this thing just needs to be a little bit further over. Let me judge that. And I got it, and then I can click next, and then I'm right back in Lectora again.
Awesome. And we do have another question about LMS connectivity.
Yes.
And it's basically just, how does Zebrazapps do in LMSs?
All right, two things. One, here's my little game, the cooking times game. If I want to create this for an LMS, I will just click this LMS button, and then I can, as traditional tools do, I can create a downloadable LMS package, which is a zip file, and it's got all the course files, the LMS manifest, the wrapper. I click this button, and that goes in my download folder or wherever I save it, and then I just load that up to my LMS just like anyone else. And then any SCORM compliant it works with. We've got some of our customers are using AICC. So, it's just traditionally like you would see with anyone else with an HTML file and JavaScript that you can edit and change if you need to. But we have a unique feature that if you want to leave the course files in Zebrazapps, and we use Amazon.com cloud services, so it's fast, it's secure, encrypted. If you do this, then when a student is running it, we can keep track of everything they've ever done, every button they've clicked, everything they've typed in, like they never left. As well as when you make a change, if you save your change in the editor, it will automatically update the LMS because we're keeping the course files on our cloud, and that means you don't have to re-upload. But if you want, then you could do this, and this is just like any other tool would do. You create the zip file and you upload it when you make a change. And so what I'm actually in Zebrazapps, so if I went back into that cooking times, so I'm going to pull that little game up again, and I am going to go to publish, and then I can zap a project. Now by zapping the project, this is the publishing. So this comes up and it wants me to give it a name. I can give it an icon because if I'm going to make a mobile app out of it, then that's going to be the icon that shows up on the mobile device. And if I made a change and click Update App, that's done. That's all I have to do. Or I would create an app, and then it would end up on that other screen where I showed you how to create the LMS package. So that's all you have to do publishing is what I just did. Now in the LMS itself, and let me zoom in a bit, make it easier to see. Here in the LMS, we have got full SCORM. So these are all of the information that is passed in when you launch it from SCORM, as well as a status and a location you can pass back and forth, like if you started it or you completed, where are you in the course, as well as you can just have the score. So you would just tie the score in to here, and then when you quit, then we would be able to, whenever you quit, then we're able to pass these scores. We also have a full Tin Can API, so that if you are using Tin Can and an LRS, we already have that all built in, and you can be getting data from the LRS and sending it back up. So all of that LMS stuff is built right in.
Great. So we have another question about, well, it's technically a question about it being software as a service, right, rather than downloaded onto your desktop. So the question was, how do people work on specific parts of a course? If they're on different computers?
Right. If they're on different computers, if you're ever in so let me open this back up again. If you're ever in a project, and that's what we call them, Zebrazapps project, we have two ways of doing it. One, people have an account, and being that you don't download anything on your hard drive, you can log in from anywhere in the world on any browser, Mac, PC, it doesn't matter. And when you log in, you have access to all of your projects. So some companies give each person an account, and some of them have X number of accounts because they might have 5 developers, and they have some courses that live in developer 1, developer 2, developer 3. If I'm doing it where this is my account, and I want to send Caitlin you a file, then all I need to do is just go to send a copy, and then I can pick a project, pick the people, and just send it to you, and that's how we can hand it back and forth. Or if we were sharing it, then I would log into the account, and I would be able to make a change from here, and then when I'm done, I give it to you, you can make a change. And the nice thing on the collaboration is if I look at the history of this cooking times, Zebrazapps is keeping every version, every change that has ever been made ever. And so I can roll back to any version, saves and autosaves, and bring that back up. And so, if someone made a change, I'm like, no, that's not what I wanted, I can roll back to a previous version. Now, we were working on a future feature where you could collaboratively work, where if you were in the event flow, someone could be working on one event, someone could be working on another, but that's down the road. So right now we have the ability to do as I explained. But one of the good things about it being a software as a service, when we come up with those new great features, you don't have to install anything. It just happens. We just update it. You might get an email that says tonight for about 15 minutes, the system's down, and then all your projects will work with all the new features. And we have a team of engineers that are daily working on and coming up with new and better features for the software.
All right, well, we have reached the end of our time here. We do have a couple more questions, so we'll continue to answer those back channel. But we do want to just thank everyone for coming out today. We will be sending that follow-up email, so please look for that probably first thing tomorrow. And we will stick around and answer any other questions, but thank you guys for joining us today.
Right, and again, please take us up on the offer. If you're currently using one of those other tools and you have something that is really difficult to do or hard to do, or maybe it just doesn't perform well, or you can't get it to work the way you want it on a mobile device, let us know, and we'd like to work with you to show you how it could be done in Zebrazapps. And maybe it's a tool set that you would want to work together. And that's why we have the software as a service model, So you might try and see if you could have Zebrazapps as something that would complement your current tool. All right, well, thanks again for your time. We appreciate it. And we're going to stick around for a few more minutes to try to answer any more questions we see. So I'll just leave my screen up, and then I'm just going to go quiet.